Thank you all for joining us for our SICSS-Howard Mathematica Lunchtime Talk with Tina and Taylor from Verycss CSS. During these chats while you chew, you'll meet interesting people or organizations that are doing cool and complementary work to what you're learning this summer in SICSS. If you don't have your lunch yet, hit pause. For those of you with food and a beverage in hand, let's get started.
Hi everyone, I'm Tina and I'm here with Taylor. We are the co-creators of Verycss CSS, which is a project we've been working on over the past 3 years to ensure that the growing field of computational social science, or CSS, is anti-racist and feminist, and that this field is led by women, Black, Latinx, and other scholars of color, scholars working outside of the US, and other scholars who identify with one or more groups that are currently underrepresented in CSS. We wish we could be there in person, but we're excited to join you remotely today at SICSS-Howard Mathematica. Thank you to Nanette for inviting us to talk about our project and for helping to make this talk happen. To introduce ourselves, I am a sociology PhD student at Northwestern and I'm based in Chicago. I study how changes in US cities affect the well-being of communities of color and how people of color exercise political agency to advocate for social change in US cities. And I primarily use network and text analysis methods and large unstructured data from digital, administrative, and archival sources. Currently, I'm working on my dissertation, which examines the long-term impact of the 1967 Detroit Rebellion on race relations in Detroit. Taylor is a sociology PhD candidate at Duke, but lives in New York City. Her dissertation combines machine learning and network analysis to investigate inequality in creative professions. Taylor is also a member of the core data science team at Facebook in DC, where she works on measuring inequality and the impact of Facebook and Instagram on civic engagement and elections. We are both proud SICSS alum. I was a participant at SICSS Duke in 2018 and then co-organized SICSS Chicago in 2019. And Taylor was a TA at the first ever SICSS Princeton in 2017 and again in 2018 across several sites. And she co-organized SICSS Oxford in 2019. We actually met each other at SICSS Duke in 2018. Taylor had been working on efforts to increase the representation of women in CSS, and I was interested in creating an effort to increase the representation of grad students of color and first-gen grad students in CSS. And Chris Bale connected the two of us at Duke. When we met and in many conversations after that, we discussed the fact that while we were really excited to be part of this emerging field of CSS, a field full of so much potential to do good and innovative things, we noticed that a lot of the speakers at the conferences and workshops we went to were white men, and usually the same few white men. They were impressive scholars, but we knew that there were also many impressive women, Black, Latinx, and other scholars of color, and scholars outside of the US who are doing game-changing work in CSS. We wanted to see these CSS scholars and to hear about their work too. We wanted the leadership of this field to look more like the students and the students to look more like our world. And we didn't want this field to look like all of the other fields. So we thought, well, what can the two of us do as grad students who want to make sure that this new field of CSS is as diverse and inclusive as it grows? So we decided that one small thing we could do was to reach out to the SICSS community and the broader CSS community to gather two things. One, a database of emerging scholars who are currently underrepresented in CSS, who we would love to see speak at conferences and workshops. And two, a list of useful resources to support newcomers to CSS. Through SICSS, we had learned about distributed data collection and open call solutions. So we thought we could put these methods to work in the service of the field by setting up a website that would provide access to a crowdsourced database of CSS speakers featuring emerging scholars who identified with an underrepresented group, and a crowdsourced list of resources to support newcomers to CSS. And that ultimately became verycss.org. So I'm going to hand things off to Taylor now, and she's going to give you a quick tour of verycss.org.
So hi, Taylor here, and welcome to verycss.org. This is the landing page, and it's a very simple website by design, though we are eager to always make it better and better. As Tina said, the site is broadly split into two sections. The first is right here, groups and workshops. And it's a list of resources to support newcomers to CSS. All of the resources here have been referred to us by members of the SICSS community or the broader computational social science community. And they include a mix of conferences, workshops, scholarships, groups. In particular, we thought we would just highlight two. One is Black in AI, which is co-founded by Timnit Gebru, who will be, we hear, and possibly another one of your speakers, a computer scientist and leader on research on algorithmic bias and data mining. She's an advocate for equity, transparency, and accountability in technology. And this is just an organization that anyone interested in AI is welcome to join, who identifies as Black. The second is Code Core, which is just a website. If you have the skills, the type of skills that you can learn in SICSS, you can come, you can identify which skills you have and what topics you'd like to contribute to, and it will get you involved in good causes and put your skills to good use. And the last is R Ladies, which is a global network of women who code in R. And there's just meetup groups all over the world, as you can see, 201 different groups in 56 different countries. So back to verycss.org. If we come back to the homepage, you'll see the second group is the second section is just a database of speakers. Everyone in this database has been added via peer review or self-nomination, but most of them are peer reviews. Currently, there are 80 emerging CSS scholars in the database. Most of the speakers are based in the US, though there are some speakers working outside of the US as well. And there's a mix of folks working in academia, in industry, in the nonprofit sector, wide range of disciplines spanning from the social sciences to computer science, engineering, and health, and a lot of different computational social science topics are covered, including agent-based modeling, AI, machine learning, network analysis, pretty much everything. And the websites of all of these people are listed below their names. And if you click here, you would get a more detailed version of this speaker list. You can see here that if you were interested in self-nominating, or if you know someone who should be on this list, please just come to this website, click the form, fill it out, and the speaker will be added to the list. We do usually review suggestions just to make sure that they meet a few qualifications for the site, which are that they are emerging scholars, meaning that they're currently PhD students, postdoctoral fellows, or untenured faculty, or that they're researchers in industry that have completed their PhD within 7 years. The other is that they're obviously working in a CSS field. And then the last is that they identify with a group that is currently underrepresented in computational social science. So far, this peer and self-nomination process has worked very well, and we've been able to add everyone who's been nominated. In terms of updates, we do try and keep things updated by adding the new suggested speakers once a month. And in the beginning, our updates were just adding these new people. Now we go back and make sure everyone still meets the criteria of being an emerging scholar, and make sure that their institutional affiliations are up to date, their websites are up to date, all of that. We try and stay on top of things, but there's a lot to do, so please be patient with us. I'm going to turn it back to Tina now to talk about kind of where we go from here.
Thanks, Taylor. So we hope that the verycss.org website has helped to highlight and support the work of emerging women scholars, emerging Black, Latinx, and other scholars of color, emerging scholars working outside of the US, and other emerging scholars who identify with one or more groups that are currently underrepresented in CSS. We don't have any fancy metrics about the website. We didn't think to do that when we first created the website, but we do regularly hear from folks via email and Twitter who say, for example, that they've used the speaker database to look for speakers for an academic or industry event, that someone reached out to them because they found them through the speaker database, or that they have a new program that they'd like for us to add to our resources list. And so we're so grateful for all the folks who have helped and continue to help share Verycss as a resource, including Sage Ocean, our friends and colleagues from the SICSS community and the broader CSS community, and including the team here at SICSS-Howard Mathematica. I'll hand things back to Taylor to talk about some of our current work right now with Verycss.
So, right, we continue to try and improve Verycss. For example, we're currently working to add teaching resources to the website. Last summer, we were invited to the SICSS Festival to share our work on Verycss with the SICSS community. And given the timing of the SICSS Festival in 2020, which was at the early stages of the protests against anti-Black police violence that were occurring throughout the US and around the world, we decided, with the encouragement of Nanette, to organize a community conversation on how the SICSS community could address anti-racism in the field of computational social science. And the SICSS community is uniquely situated to have these sorts of conversations for the field. It's a global, multidisciplinary, early career network of scholars and teachers, which you are now a part of. Very few, if any, disciplines have had such a tight-knit and connected community to coordinate action early on in the development of its practice and canon. So as a result of that conversation that we had last summer, a group of us have been meeting over the past several months to design a model CSS syllabus that's anti-racist, feminist, and anti or decolonial. So the reason we did this, in the past 10 years, the field of CSS has seen this explosion of university courses and syllabi and online resources. And we're very lucky to have all of that at our disposal. But while so much is available, we recognize that it's important to stay critical about who is being referenced or used as a reference category in discussions, what context and populations are drawn on for examples and exercises, which questions are asked, how issues get problematized, what assumptions are made when ethics are engaged, and just in general, what and who is missing from the dialogue of instruction for computational social science. Obviously, a CSS syllabus could teach you all the methods of how to correctly use an API or do a word embedding model, but it could still perpetuate troubling norms of the status quo. And we don't want that. It's bad for society, it's bad for individuals, it's bad for our science. So things like pedagogy, ontology, epistemology, these big words that really just get at the heart of what is real as a discipline. What do we consider real? How do we talk about it? What language do we use? They're very important for us to take seriously as a discipline. And so we think that getting at syllabi is kind of at getting at the heart of our field and our identity as scholars. We were inspired by the work of Catherine D'Ignazio and Lauren Klein. They wrote a book called Data Feminism that took a principled and quantified look at approaching an audit, essentially, of their own book to see what they were referencing and whether or not they were perpetuating such things as classism, colonialism, racism, patriarchy, and ableism. I'm going to share my screen just so I can give you a look at, I'm going to share my screen just so that I can show you a little bit about what they have been working on. This is a website that identifies what their audit was of their site and the principles that they followed in addressing this audit. Down at the bottom, you can see that they had aspirational goals for their syllabus, as well as metrics that they would measure it by and to hold themselves accountable to see how they did. And we're trying to apply something similar to computational social science syllabi. And we're doing it communally in the spirit of Verycss, which is to create simple but impactful resources. The group of us are hoping to soon provide teachers with easy access to citations, exercises, and questions that they could ask themselves while they're developing courses, as well as providing these same resources to students in case their teachers are not doing this. The conversations in our meetings are always thought-provoking and challenging, and we'd love to have any of you join us in this effort. We look forward to sharing the new work with you soon, and I'm going to pass it back to Tina now just for a little bit of a wrap-up.
Awesome, thanks, Tay. So Taylor and I hope that our quick overview and tour of Verycss has been helpful. And we encourage you to go to verycss.org to check out the website for yourself. And please feel free to reach out to us at verycss@gmail.com. We're always looking for ways that we can improve the website and ways that our little project can help to ensure that the growing field of CSS is as innovative as it is inclusive. This work to ensure inclusion in CSS is important, and it can be challenging and intimidating, but it is also always thought-provoking and encouraging. We've learned a lot along the way, and we continue to learn and grow. And we've really appreciated having this opportunity to share the story behind our small effort toward ensuring inclusion in CSS. Thank you to SICSS-Howard Mathematica for having us, and we look forward to continuing the conversation with you during the live Q&A in June. And I'll hand things back to Nanette to wrap things up.
Thank you so much for watching. For more information on SICSS-Howard Mathematica, visit our website, follow us on social media, or join our email list. Thanks so much for watching.